I think we've got to remember what people said in the past, and Mr. Farage is on record saying that he admired Mr. Putin. Does he still admire Mr. Putin? Why did he admire Mr. Putin? Did he not know? Could he not see? I remember back in 2014, I remember being in Moscow and going up. I remember there was a ball in my university, and I remember going upstairs to the rector's office, and outside the rector's office there was this enormous relief map of Russia, and the little bit that was that had been Ukraine, and the little bit of Ukraine that was Crimea, had already been coloured in as Russian, and that was probably a day or two after Putin's invasion of Crimea, Putin's takeover of Crimea. And I thought, this is not a place to stay. And I was quite pleased in the end to have been able to leave. And I think Mr. Farage has quite a bit of explaining to do. And I'm not. I think he thinks that he did his Brexit stuff, and then he sort of went into the shadows and on to GBNews, and he's very good at reading from autocue, so much better than Nadine Dorries. But frankly, should he not be in the House of Lords answering questions and offering his advice for something that, frankly, he knows better than anybody about? He's spent 20-odd years of his life hoping for Brexit. Now we've got it. He should be there on hand to offer guidance, but he's not. He's carping from the sidelines. Well, he should have been there in the centre of the issue. And as I say, he should be held to account, and he should be asked, what does he mean about his admiration of Putin? And has that changed? And the other subject, to flip the coin slightly, because I made quite a lengthy video about Farage earlier, and there was no sound, which is ridiculous. I don't know what had gone wrong with my computer. But the other subject is Prince Harry saying that he would like to come back to the UK as a working royal, particularly to help his father during this difficult time. And I think, that's a very attractive proposal, and I hope it's followed up, and I hope something is done by the royal family and by their advisors to take Harry up on this offer, with or without Meghan and his children. But we need Harry back. We need a united front. We need a demonstration that problems can be repaired. Now, I'm perfectly happy, by the way, to see a recanting Putin, to see an apologetic Putin, and to say, okay, right, is all forgiven. Well, perhaps not quite that much, but we, get out of Ukraine, and let's bring you back into the fold of the global community, because we need Russia in the world. And we need what Russia has to offer. Russia is a fantastic country. And at the moment it's being brought low by a particularly ambitious and stupid individual, dead or otherwise. It doesn't matter whether he's dead. It doesn't matter whether he's in the fridge. What matters is recognizing that he abandoned humanity long ago, I think as far back as 2014. And there is always still an opportunity. To the last moment there is an opportunity that somebody will recant, that somebody will recognize how stupid, how foolish they've been. But it is foolishness. Evil is foolishness. And One lives in hope. One lives in hope. But hanging on, in the hope that things will get better for him is not going to happen. It's not going to happen unless he turns round. A complete change is the only way forward for him. Same thing for Farage, frankly. Nothing's going to improve while he sort of hides in the corner of GBNews. He might learn how to be a very good presenter. He is a good presenter. He's not very good at interviews, but then nor is Rees-Mogg. Same issues. But I think Farage has the edge, and Farage also has astonishing charisma. He's got an attractive personality, which I'm afraid Rees-Mogg doesn't quite have. But Rees-Mogg is a consummate professional in terms of his auto cue reading, in terms of his preparation. I don't think he's a very good interviewer, and interviews are not really there to promote Rees-Mogg. Interviews should be there to promote the person being interviewed, and maybe at some point Rees-Mogg will learn that, but I don't know. I don't hold out a lot of hope. Lee Anderson is a non-starter, and Nadine Dorries, well, every so often, I think by accident, she produces something which is quite watchable, but most of the time we turn on Nadine Dorries for fun, and she's full of fun, really. And as for Rishi Sunak's another person. There's no point in playing the waiting game. The game is up. The game is up. It's time to face the music. And yes, there's always an opportunity to say, I'm sorry, Rishi. There's always an opportunity to apologise. And a lot of the problems that Rishi is dealing with are not of his own making. But he could have solved some of them. And one of them was the Rwanda problem. Solving immigration was not about repeating the nonsense of Priti Patel. And I think part of his problem was appointing Suella Braverman, a person who doesn't seem to have had an original thought in the entire time that she was Home Secretary, but doesn't seem to have had much of a thought, judging by the sort of confusion and dismay that enswamped her when she was asked by Tim Lawton how a hypothetical African migrant would claim asylum in the UK, where his hypothetical brother was already a refugee. And she eventually admitted, well, the only way for him to do it was through an illegal route, and he could legalise himself by claiming asylum as soon as he got to the UK, so presumably by a small boat, and it was only a matter of a week or so before her laws came in, which made that completely impossible under modern British law, which of course is in contradiction of the international agreements that we are signatories to. So it's nonsensical. But Rishi Sunak tied himself to her rudder, like Mark Antony, and is dragged along behind her in her wake. And it is rather stupid, because Sunak is cleverer than that. And the way to solve the problem that Lord Frost left behind, he left behind that problem, the problem of having abandoned Dublin 3 without an alternative, and the problem of Northern Ireland. So Chris Heaton-Harris has spent the last year or so solving the Northern Ireland problem, and nobody has solved the Dublin 3 problem. The Labour Party plan to effectively recreate Dublin 3 with negotiations with Europe in the first few months of their administration, I think they're going to have an uphill struggle. The better option now is to hold an international conference and redefine what a refugee is, and at the same time also commit to placing consulates in northern Libya, in Turkey, in Syria, and so on, at the point so to deter people from making that journey across the Mediterranean as well as across the Channel. And if there's no reason for people to cross the sea, I think European countries will follow our example in this case. We need to break the smuggling trade by breaking the need for people even to cross the sea at all. Once that is done, we will have a lot more control over migration, which is what we wanted in the first place. I think that's what Farage said he wanted. Control. We don't get control by offering a deterrent to say, oh, go to Rwanda, that's a deterrent. Rwanda's our friend, we're paying them money, but we think it's the most detestable place on earth. If that's what you say about your friends, what on earth do you say about your enemies? Here's a proposal, and I don't know whether it's worth anything. Here's a proposal, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, I'm sorry. Why don't we suggest sanctions don't work, so let's obliterate the sanctions that we imposed on Russia. Let's rescind the sanctions of Russia. And instead, let's say to Russia, you can take our migrants. You can have them. Now that will be a deterrent, because maybe they can be put as cannon fodder in the war. Maybe they can be sent off to the Arctic Circle to dig potatoes or something. That is a real deterrent, but I can't see that sending somebody to Rwanda is a deterrent. The biggest deterrent for a migrant crossing continents to escape war, famine, gangs is already there. That is the deterrent. There's no deterrent in saying you might go to Rwanda. They are already leaving their family. They are already making that huge commitment to seek a life elsewhere. More than that, they probably don't read the English media. They probably don't pay that much attention to this. They probably think this is propaganda from the smugglers who have already trapped them and are feeding them their own lies. No. We don't need a deterrent to reply to Rishi Sunak. We don't need a deterrent. What we could do, for example, would be to follow the Italian agreement with Albania. We could do that with Rwanda. Maybe we could use Rwanda as a place to process, as a place to keep refugees, migrants, while we are processing them, and then when they are fully processed, we take them back. It's a long way to go for a hotel, but that's one option. But punishing people simply for the route that they took, when internationally that is perfectly a legitimate way to apply for asylum, is a highway to tyranny. Oh, and we only have to look at Russia to see what that's really like. By the way, I was a bit tongue-in-cheek about suggesting that we send all our migrants to Russia, but Russia would be a deterrent. Rwanda is not. And I can't imagine why any country would be so lacking in self-respect as to say, oh, look, yes, you could send people to us because we are the most detestable, the most horrible place that you could imagine sending anybody. We would act as a deterrent. Aye, what hokum.